always be kind. I think, if you can just pass some kindness forward, and if everybody did that globally, the impact it would have would be so significant. And I don't even think we would be able to imagine how,
Welcome to Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, where I bring you real conversations with entrepreneurs on how they live their lives outside their business. We deep dive into the energies, the motivations, the disciplines, the habits, and the mindsets which make them successful in their life, which in turn leads to success in their business. Now, today I've got a special guest with me, Meera. We've been talking online, and I've been trying to get her on, and finally I found time in her busy schedule to join us. She's currently in this wedding and events management business, but she has a nice past as well, because she's a radio presenter as well, and she's been a magazine editor as well. So I want to pick her brain on all those things. So without further ado, hi Meera.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Not at all. So I'm going to hand over the mic to you. So if you can give a brief introduction to yourself, and then we can run the conversation from there.
Sure, that sounds good. So I'm Meera Majithia, and I am a specialist Indian and interfaith wedding planner. I'm also a bridal coach, and I recently just launched a matchmaking agency too. I like to call it a personal introductions agency, and that's a specialist agency for South Asian singletons. So currently, that's the remit that I'm working within.
Perfect. And also, I understand, are you still radio presenting as well? Is that something you do at this?
Yeah, still presenting. So you'll currently find me on the breakfast shift between 7 and 10 on Subrus Radio. Not quite sure if I'm allowed to plug that, but I just did. So
there you go. Fine, it's done. So let's go a little bit into what you said there. So wedding events, planning, matchmaking, matrimonials, etc. So where did that come from in the line of things you've done? So you've done obviously editing, magazine editing, then obviously radio presenting, and now you're into the marriage side of things. Where did that come from? Where did that energy come from to move into that and actually stay in there?
So it was very much just by chance. I think a lot of people will probably say that when they start up their own business, but I've naturally always been quite creative. I think that creative flow, that energy is what, is probably the strongest within me. So I have a media background. So I started off working in print journalism, then I moved into kind of editing a local magazine, and I just love the whole creative aspect of that. And then when you're doing a lot of, print journalism, writing, feature writing, sometimes you do a lot of, editorials or PR-led pieces of work. So within the PR remit, then you start doing a couple of events here and there. And I thought, hang on, this is something I quite enjoy. Events are so different day to day that it allows you to kind of utilize a very large skill set, especially when you're running your own business. So I actually had a friend at the time who was working in hospitality. We felt like there was a gap in the market, and we just said, actually, let's give it a go, and let's see if there is interest. So we just started it on a whim, to be honest. And, 5 years later, I'm still here.
Perfect. So you being into myself and being part of a lot of weddings that we've had in our family and things like that, it's a beautiful time, but a very stressful time. Right? I had a few family members that got married abroad recently. Well, not recently, a few years ago. And that was quite nice because we weren't involved in any of the pre-build-up things. It was just, we turned up as guests, which was quite rare in an Indian setting. Normally we're told to do some other tasks, wedding and stuff, right? So that was quite nice. So you're a wedding planner or a bridal coach, is that correct? And so what does that involve, and how do you get involved in the whole wedding side of things?
So I offer a various different range of services. Clients will come to me and they'll say, can you help coordinate the day? So that means that they've done all the hard work in terms of finding their suppliers and putting everything together. And then I'm just there to make sure everything runs smoothly on the day, because of course they're getting married, so they can't actually physically make sure it runs well. And a lot of people nowadays want their families to enjoy their weddings, which is why they want them to just chill out and not have to run around after the suppliers. So that's where I come in. I also offer like a virtual wedding assistant. So that's whereby they're just busy professionals. They just don't have the time to actually contact all their suppliers and venues and do all the admin side of things, but they don't have the budget, say, for a full wedding planner. So it's a slightly more cost-effective way of having a planner on board. I'm not there on the day, but I've done all the hard work, and then they can kind of see the day through as they feel they want to. And then the full package is literally everything from start to finish. So couples will come to me, they'll say, this is my budget, this is what I'm looking for, and then we start from scratch, and they're as much involved or as little involved as they would like to be. So either I take full charge and I literally hand them, because they're one of those couples where, you know, they don't interact a lot, or, you know, they're quite involved, and actually I'm saying, well, these are 3 suppliers, you choose the best one, how would you like to move forward? So I'm quite flexible in my approach, and I think that's how it's quite different to a lot of planners, because I don't have a set list of suppliers, I don't work in a set way. The only thing that's set for me is my fee as such, and then everything around that is flexible, because everyone's so different. So I don't like the idea of it having to be run a specific way, because it needs to be tailored, because it's so personal. Weddings are so personal. So that's how I essentially help them. And in terms of coaching, that's come about because during lockdown, actually, I launched a bridal planning platform. It's like a private membership site for brides. It's brilliant, by the way. Doors officially open on October 18th. And the idea is that brides will actually plan their wedding themselves through my already proven successful 7-step wedding planning success path. So I will show them 7 key stages that they need to come through. And that's, you know, inclusive of workbooks, it's inclusive of masterclasses, live Q&As, supply discounts, and all sorts. So it's like a whole wedding planning hub. And that's where the coaching side of the business really comes into play.
Wow, lots and lots going on. Looks like you've been busy during this time of lockdown, which is great to hear, because it was a good time to actually reflect back and see what you really want to do. So that's really good. Now, how, just a sort of like a off question to the things you do. So now you deal with special events, and these are generally one-off events, right? So weddings obviously is a lot of energy goes into it, thought processes, a lot of mindset, a lot of money goes into this single day, in effect, right? Within obviously it's about a week, but yeah, this single day. Now, how do you manage your stress during the times when everyone around them seems to be losing their heads?
Do you mean on the day?
Just generally, like even the lead up to it, because I've seen, you know, like lead up to an event, it can be like hugely. I think it's a lot of it self-inflicted as well by the groom and the bride and the family and things like that, because there's so many different voices coming into the ears of the bride or the groom. Why is this not doing? Why are we doing it like this, etc., etc. And sometimes you can be the in between, right, of the family and the bride, etc. So how do you personally have your coping strategies in terms of the high pressure event that is a wedding?
So it's funny you ask that, because I don't think I actually have any coping mechanism. So I'm naturally I'm able to detach myself from emotional situations. So I'm like this on any level. I don't get overly excited or overly upset. I'm like just super boring and there, which is why weddings felt perfect, because I generally don't feel that stressed. So on a day, when I arrive, I'm not stressed. I'm not that person that feels like super exhausted or tired or frustrated, or like that doesn't happen. I don't start shouting at suppliers, despite what you may hear or see like from other wedding planners. That's not how it happens at a Carriages wedding. And that's why I felt like this was the perfect job for me, because I just felt like it was fun. So for me, naturally on the day, that whole aspect doesn't come into play. Like there will be times when actually things are going wrong. It happens a lot. Like that's why people need a planner, because things don't always go to plan. That's when actually it starts to get a little bit stressful for me from a professional point of view, because I'm thinking, great, it's, you know, it needs to be ready for 6. We're now like 10 to 6. They don't have the canapes out. What are we going to do? And at that point you start running around. But really it's about, I think, understanding what your role is and managing the team. And I've always felt that if you do that in a positive way and you explain why things need to be done, then people will just actually respect you and just help get things done. And I think you have to show that you don't just command respect. You have to kind of show that you're involved. So I have swept floors and moved chairs, and, you know, I'm not like the most like physically able person out there, but I've done that, like moved tables, because you do what you can to chip in to make sure the day goes well. And I think when other people see that, everybody's happy to chip in on the day as well.
And I think that's, for me, leading from the front, right? It's not just standing with your clipboard and saying, you do this, you do this. When they can see you're willing to just pick up those chairs or move down or pick this off a table, then it shows that I'm willing to do it and I'm supposed to be the one in charge here. So don't think that you're beyond this or above this, because I think that's a great way of leading, because it just shows that you understand it's empathy, isn't it, for the people that are doing a lot of the work, that I'm not immune to this. I will help out if I need to.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's a team effort. Like, we always say the event would only go well if you kind of work together as a team. Like, my schedule could be immaculate and amazing, but if no one's actually going to do anything, it's not going to work. And that's just, with anything in life. Like, I think you have to just also get your hands dirty. You can't just sit there on the side and just say, oh, you do it, because that's just not my style. So again, you try and do as much as you can to make sure it does go well and run smoothly.
Do you find that, with brides and grooms that come to you, do they already have a set idea of what they want, or is it sort of they leave that open and ask for your suggestions in certain things, or is it more they have an idea and you just have to roll with what they have?
It's very rare for somebody to come to me and have no idea whatsoever. Okay. So usually they'll have some inkling as to, I want a destination wedding, or we want this many events. So actually I like this kind of style. The smaller details, like the finer details of stationery, maybe some colors and florals and those things I can influence based on what I think would look, aesthetically the best. But usually they will have some indication. If they have no indication, that's fine, because my job is to put together mood boards and help them and guide them. And I do that a lot through, the budget guideline that they give me, because I'm very conscious of budget. So I don't just work with high-end people who are spending, over 100 or 250K. I've worked with couples who spent 30K right up to over 250. So it's a very broad spectrum. So some of them will be very clear and down to the exact supplier, and some will literally have no idea whatsoever. And it's fun to be able to work with both, because it keeps the job varied. Otherwise you're constantly doing the same thing, which is, going back to my whole creative flow. It's nice to be able to do different things all the time. So it's what I enjoy.
Very diplomatic answer there, I guess. But which is the most fun? Which do you have the most fun?
The fun is always being able to put your stamp on something, because it means you can get creative. If somebody is giving you a project essentially, and they're saying this is exactly what I want it to look like, though it's fun, my job is then really just to source supplies. It's not to put together those beautiful boards and see what we can do. So you also have to be very conscious, or I like to be conscious of stepping on someone's toes and saying, actually, what about this or this, especially when they're quite firm about what they want. Whereas if somebody has no idea, then you can just send across a range of ideas, and that they'll take those on openly, and they won't feel like it's an attack on their own taste or anything like that. So you just have to be quite tactful when you approach things like that.
You also seem like, from the short conversation we've had just now, you seem more of a getting your hands dirty type person, as opposed to sitting at a desk and working on a computer. It seems like your energy comes well off when you're interacting sort of with people, like maybe face to face or one on one, and then using your flair, your creativity, your organization skills to bring something into motion. So you seem like a people person, rather than a sort of sit behind a screen and send emails and things like that. Would that be true?
I don't know, because I feel like I have to do both. Yes, you have to talk to people and you have to build relationships. It's a key part of the job. But then another part of the job is actually literally just sitting behind your desk and sending out emails. So it's having to do both. And I'll be honest, there are days when I just love sitting behind my desk and just sending out emails. And then there are days where you want to go out. So I like the balance between the two. I'm not quite sure which one I lean towards. Right now, all I've been doing is sitting behind my desk for the past 6 months. So maybe that's all I can remember doing.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier before we started that you were setting up some kind of matchmaking or a specialized matchmaking service. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so that's something that was actually in the pipeline for a while. And I know prior to us actually recording this, we spoke about how you constantly have, ideas going around. And this was one of those, because I have a lot of single friends, and there didn't seem to be the type of agency that maybe I would go to, or one of my friends would go to, in terms of matchmaking or personal introductions. But you're so busy with weddings all the time that you just don't want to launch something so big. And this just felt like the perfect time, because also right now, it's difficult for people to meet in person. It's, you can't really socialize or just go to a bar. You can, but you're not going as much and things like that. So it felt like a good time to do that. I don't do that alone. I have a business partner, just because time would not allow me to fully manage another whole business. But the idea is just that we'll connect people who actually fit from a personality point of view. So the way it's structured is you get in touch if you are actually looking to be with someone seriously, like it's a serious committed relationship or potentially marriage. And then we'll do a quick consult and understand, what you're about, what your values are. And then your actual profile is then sent across to a potential match, but we don't kind of give out any like name or personal details as such. It's trying to give you one photograph, but actually then looking at the personality profile to see if somebody matches you. So there seems to be a demand for it because actually we had an influx of inquiries. So I guess we'll just see how it goes. I
think that's really interesting because that whole, the dating scene, I think it got to a point, pre-lockdown, I think it got to a point where it became very, how would you say, this swipe right sort of thing going on where it's like it became like a meat market. I don't know which other way I can suggest it, where it's just like a plethora of faces and it's like very quick and for me personally, relationships have never worked like that. It's never been where you just pick and choose like a production machine, It's always been where you build relationships, where you get to know someone and see, do we work, do the value, like you said, the values match, is this all part of a bigger process, which is where a relationship comes from, right?
Yeah.
And what I really love about your idea is because you're using that same basic method to try and put two people together, as opposed to saying, here's 50 people, pick one. It's okay, let's step back. And like you said, I think there's so many more people, I agree with that, where they're looking for a long-term partner or they're looking to get married, etc. And they may not necessarily have the time, or they may have just not been in the circumstances or surrounded with their work, etc., dictated that they can't do that. Whereas if someone can say, actually, look, I'll sit and talk to you, I'll take all the information, then we'll see if we can find someone for you. I think it's brilliant. And I think that personalized service is what it's all about now. I think with a lot of industries, not just obviously dating, but a lot of industries where you can take bespoke packages as opposed to just saying, here's a one-size-fits-all solution and let's roll with it. So with that, if you can, at the end of the podcast, I'll put those details on the show notes because I know people listening will be interested in that. And it seems quite scientific. How does that work in terms of the profiling to make sure two people match?
It's really not scientific at all, which I don't know if I'm just shooting myself in the foot at all. But so, like, I'm such a big believer in like you can read people. Like I feel like it's one of my talents as such. I wouldn't say that, but I think that sometimes you just get a feel for people's energies. And right now, I'll be honest, a lot of the consults we're doing are via video, so they're not like in person. But I still feel when you're speaking to somebody and you see their face and reaction, you get an idea of that energy. And I personally, along with my business partner, so we have, different methods, but for me, it's asking those questions, seeing how they react, just feeling, engaging those energies, because two potential opposites may match, or actually they may be looking for somebody who's quite similar to them, but it's more of a personal approach, the same way like you might set up a friend, or, your aunts might set you up, or it's that kind of approach. It's not, there's no algorithm, because I hate algorithms. Like they're fine on social media, but let's just leave them there, because I don't feel that's how, people connect. So that's how it's done. And a lot of people who have, come on board as clients, they have just said, we've done the dating scene. And by the way, I'm not bashing online dating, because I've got friends who have actually met their partners through other online dating apps, but they've all said that we've tried it and, we've just not met the right person. There's a lot of ghosting. Dating has changed. We just want somebody nice and kind who's just not, going to ignore us after a couple of messages or actually take us out on a date. So it's as simple as that. But people are just not finding that elsewhere. So it's just using, just common sense, I guess, and just general like human interactions to judge who would be a right fit for who.
Brilliant. Like I said, when you simplify it down, and it is true, it's energy exchange, isn't it? When you talk to someone, or when you're having a face-to-face conversation, or you're just reading something, there is an energy exchange between two people, which when you're a little bit more open and you feel that I'm willing to be a bit more vulnerable and the other person is as well, I think that's such a great place to be in, as opposed to two people being very guarded and trying to be have a facade. And I think when you're younger, I think that can happen naturally. You're not sure about yourself. But as you get older, I think you become more open, and it's like, well, this is who I am, whichever way you decide to take that.
Yeah.
And what I like now is like, so I've got a lot of cousins that are recently got engaged that will be they were meant to get married this year, but that
Oh dear.
changed a lot of the plans. But a lot of them found their partners later, so 30 plus, 30, 35 plus. And I remember when I was younger, so I'm probably older than you anyway, Meera, but I got married at 27, and that was nearly 20 years ago. And that, at the time, I felt okay. It felt like I feel all right to get married. Maybe maybe a little bit young, but I'm okay. I didn't feel like I felt young. But seeing some of my cousins that are 27-year-olds, I'm like, you can't even live outside your house. I don't know how you get married, right? So this is the thing that I found quite interesting, that things have just moved on. And I like it that, because now knowing myself, being older, I know so much more about me, what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not willing to accept, right? And maybe that's called stubbornness. Maybe it's just called pig-headedness. I don't know. But I just know I like certain types of people and I don't like certain types of people. And that's cool. And if I was entering that dating game now, I'd rather do it your way as opposed to the whole, that, like you said, the ghosting and the just the machine gun approach to dating. Because I think it's so much more personal. And I think it's so important to find someone that, like I said, shares your values, is aligned with you as a person, and you can just chill with, like just have some time with and enjoy their company. And you feel, I am a whole person and they are a whole person. We're two whole people coming together, as opposed to 3/4 or half of each person. We're trying to fill each other's gaps by dictating to the person what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And that, I've never agreed with that, and as you get older, I think you find your space and you find your way. So let's flip the ball back to you, Meera. So when you are you married right now?
No.
You're not. So now, is this going to be a conversation that you have with yourself in terms of how you're going to go about this? Do you have a partner?
No, so it's funny because when we set up Match, they're like,
right.
Have you set it up just to find a partner for yourself?
Why not? Why not?
Clearly it's unprofessional to date any client, so that's not going to happen. But no, the idea was, it just came, like I said, I have so many single friends. And the idea is that, even if you are set up on a date, it's then, do you have someone who you can just go to for advice, to say, actually, what should I wear? Or, where should I take this person on the date? Or for somebody to give you a nudge to say, actually, have you asked this person out on a date? And it doesn't have to be the guy and it doesn't have to be the girl. Like, it's our job to just make sure it's moving forward in some respect. And it's all those little things that you just don't get when you're signing up to an app, because so often, when you're in your, I'd say mid 30s or late 30s or early 40s, a lot of your friends might already be married. They might have kids. You may not want to have the discussion with them because they've probably gone past the whole dating phase and they just don't know what's happening right now. So I think, again, those sorts of values and those things, they were quite important for us to bring to this particular service, because we just felt like maybe that's something that people would want or need, that we're just missing out there for them.
And do you deal with people yourself? So you said, like you said, you've got friends, you've got family, whatever it is, that you're starting the basis from there and then sort of moving up from there. How do you go about finding people, so enough types of people to match? Is it just a case of just put the word out there and see how many people come in, or is there something different to that?
Yeah, so actually currently we're offering a complimentary trial which runs out at the end of October. So it was launched in September, and there was just an influx. If I'm honest, we haven't advertised at all, because all of a sudden there was just one post that went out on Facebook, and there was an influx of all these people. So without doing any advertising, it was word of mouth and just one simple post with no money behind it at all. So there's all these people, and long term, however, we understand that's not going to be sufficient. The way we work will be different because it will be a paid for service. So the idea is anybody can sign up to the database for free. There's no charge for that whatsoever. So if you're signing up to any of the online dating apps, you may as well just sign up to this. But for those clients who actually wish to come on board as paying clients, then we would then be actually searching actively for people for them to date or to be introduced to. So the way it works is that potentially we may have people on the database, we may not, in which case we would then go out and search, and that's through our own contacts, communities, or however, whatever their personality is like. We would just see if we could find somebody that matches them.
And hopefully you're going to be on that database as well.
My name will not be on there.
Why even not? You are the founder.
Well, I mean, like I said, it would just be a conflict of interest. So,
oh, you never know.
You never know. I'll have to come back on if that's the case, because that might make for an interesting podcast.
There you go. An interesting story. Part of the already interesting journey, right?
Yes.
Now, if we take a step back, okay, so when you were entering the fields of your editorial and your when you went into radio presenting, you've gone into this. What is it about you that's when you decide to do something, and editorial is one thing because you've got a creative flair, and then you move into presenting, and now you're going to bridal. What gave you the belief that you could do these things before you actually started to do them?
I've always just been someone who just likes to do stuff. And I know that sounds really bizarre, but like from when I was 16, I mean, my friends would joke that I would collect jobs because I just went from one job to another. And it wasn't just because I couldn't like stay in one job because they were firing me. That was not the case. I just like to pick up different skill sets because I always felt from a young age, until I have a lot of experience, how will I know what I'm good at, or, you know, what I want to do? And so the idea was, let's just go out and try everything. And I think I did a lot of things, and most things I tended to enjoy. But for me, like, if I enjoy something, then I know that if it lights me up, then that's where I need to be. So that's the way I just decide and make decisions as to, you know, this is what I need to do. So it was quite easy because I just follow that energy. And if I enjoy doing something, then I know it's right for me. And if not, then I won't do it. So it's a very simple analogy, but that's just the way, I do things.
Yeah. Would you say you're quite spiritual?
I didn't think I was. I'm definitely not so religious, but I think over time I have been. I enjoy reading a lot and just learning. So I guess over time, you do pick up things. So I wouldn't say I'm not spiritual, but I wouldn't say I'm fully spiritual either. But I'm very much, I do believe in, you know, energies, the positivity and karma and all those things. So on some level, I'd assume that I was, yes.
The reason I asked that question is because you do talk about energy quite a lot. And it is, for me, it's a lot of the basis to a lot of the decisions I make. How does it make me feel? How does it, like you said, how does it light me up? Which path do I go down, or what do I choose to, or what do I choose not to do? Sometimes your brain can talk in logic, but your heart and your gut talk in feeling, right? And sometimes your brain will tell you do that, but your gut's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Or the other way around, your brain saying no, but your gut's saying, yeah, do it. And I like that now. To tap into that, obviously you need to get quiet to tap into that, right? To trust that intuition, to know that something out there knows better than you in terms of your decisions and the way you're going to lead your life. So if you can trust that a little bit more, I think we as people and we as a human race can have you know, I've always said that when people are happy, it's the best time to be around someone, because they're just sparking and there's, you know, and they're buzzing off everything that's happening in their life, right? And we just need more happier people. I think during this lockdown and this pandemic, I think I've seen some people go through stress, go through, you know, turmoil, go through heartache, go through so many negative stresses on them, when sometimes you just need to let go. Some things you can't control. Some things, you know, like things that are happening outside us, we can't control it. All we can do is respond to it and see what we can choose, how we respond to it, right? And how we can be within that. And if we're responsible for 100% for our own lives, we know that it's our choice to where our life finds us, right? And if we then don't like that, we need to just choose again, correct?
Yeah.
So if you're giving advice to a younger person that was first sort of starting out on their journey of work or finding a passion, what kind of advice would you give them?
My advice, so when I'm speaking to my like nieces and nephews who are like now, you know, 15 to 21-ish, even when they were picking their subjects, I would just say, you have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's just going to be worthless, which I'm not sure if their parents always agreed with, but that was my advice. And I would say that to anyone. And that's whether, you know, you're going to university or whether you're starting a business. Because I just think, again, if you're starting a business, you have to enjoy it. And you need to know and understand, you know, why you're doing it, because you're going to be working such long hours. You may not even be getting as good a wage as you might do if you're going to work for some corporate company. So is that worth it if you're then not enjoying what you're doing? So I think that just is my number one. Like, you have to love it.
And I think like you said about the money side of things, which is quite an interesting conversation with a lot of people, where I know having my own business, I could have earned a lot more doing other things, corporate, right? But I enjoyed it and it fills me up so much that I won't even choose to think to do anything else, right? And I know that when you feel blessed that money will always be okay and life will always be good, that you don't need to make decisions in that way. So there's certain work that I've turned down which just didn't feel right, even though financially it made sense. Another work that I've taken on which financially doesn't make sense because it's like we're doing so much more for that, but we were helping people out and there were some older people that we just wanted to help and it made sense. And somehow after that, even though logic told us don't do it, heart said yes, afterwards there's so much more that's come out of it that we would never even seen if we never started in the first place. You understand what I mean? I hope
I completely agree.
Yeah, and that's the thing, trying to instill that into the younger generation, to say, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but if it makes you happy, just do it, because you don't know where it's going to go, what doors are going to open, or who you're going to meet because you're doing that thing, right? And it's having faith in yourself and your ability, so you'll always be all right. Don't get caught in that. So many people live a life where they do things which they do to pay the bills, which I understand that, right? But at what point are you giving up your life for it? And that's the bit that doesn't make sense to me. I suppose I've been blessed all my life that I've never had to worry about that. But I know a lot of people are one paycheck away from being homeless, and that's the truth. That's the truth, right? So if, moving forward from here, you seem like there's so a lot going on, right? And you're managing it really well because you seem very controlled. And very
Is that how I see?
Which I love. Hopefully you're getting enough sleep as well. What skills do you still need to master, grow, or learn to create the next version of Meera?
I think, probably just judging from my behavior during lockdown, I've become a bit of a workaholic. And I don't know if that's because there's nothing else to do. So I think achieving the work-life balance is probably my biggest challenge. When you're juggling multiple things, time management in terms of work is fine, but then it's always making sure that there's time that you've taken out, because right now there's actually no social engagement. So sometimes there's no time booked out in my diary for like lunch on a Sunday, but it's just knowing that you still have to take that time out. And that's just something I'm still learning and adjusting, because when you're at home, it's just so tempting to, I'll just go on the laptop and answer a couple of emails, do all that kind of stuff. So I think just taking some time away from it is probably healthy. And that's something that I need to work on a personal level.
And I think that's a muscle that you need to build, right, in your own brain. Because I've got that. I've been there 10 years ago, being in this situation where you work and you don't see it as work, because you're like, I need to do this and I get this done. I'm getting this. I'm staying on top of this. And by the time you know it, you've not actually seen anyone. You're like, okay, what was the importance of that? So it's definitely something that I've had to consciously do, where you take a step back and say, actually, even though I could do that, I'm choosing not to. I'm just going to sit and not do that, and I'm going to maybe read, or I'm going to ring someone or talk to someone. But it is, when you say the balance, I don't think there's ever a balance. What there is, I think there's an importance you play. At certain times, work is important. You need to do that. But at certain times when it's not, it's recognizing that actually now I can take more time out to spend time with family, with friends, make a call, or go for a walk, or read a book, or go and connect with nature, because I've not done that for a while. And it's taking that time, not seeing it as wasted time, because I see that as wasted time. I'd be like, I could be doing, sending some more business and stuff like that. Now I recognize that we have so much time. There's so much time ahead of us that we can't see it that, because we didn't spend that day doing that was wasted. No, because you connected with so many other things that are not normal for you in terms of the way you think, and therefore to change that takes time. But when it changes, you don't want to go back to how it was. So practice that. Okay. What do you do outside of work, just for things to keep you enjoying?
Exercise was a big thing prior to lockdown, so now it's kind of home exercising, which is good fun, because we have a very like busy household right now, so that's always interesting. Just going for walks at the moment, that seems to be my pastime because there's not a lot else that I can do. I like baking and cooking, so they're all things that I enjoy, and I kind of see the radio as a bit of a hobby as opposed to work. So yeah, they're the kind of things I like.
With the radio side of things, in terms of presenting, where did you get your skill to speak? Like being a presenter, because you need to be able to speak and maybe ad lib quite quickly as well. So where did that come from? Has that always been natural, or did you have to learn that?
No, it was something I learned. Working on the radio was just a conscious decision, actually. It was for personal development more so than anything, which at the time I was working in media. I'd actually taken a short break, and I wanted to just stay in touch with that whole media world. And it just felt like a good thing to do because it was very much out of my comfort zone. If you told me like 6-7 years ago, just go and present, even a minute like on air would seem daunting, because actually 1 minute is a very long time when there's like nobody saying anything. So it was just doing something out of my comfort zone and then trying to master that skill, which I haven't yet, but just trying to get there like day by day. Because I think that's important to constantly grow. And that was a weakness that I recognized within myself that I just wanted to target. So that's currently something I'm working on.
I suppose also, again, with radio, it's quite interesting because you speak, but there's no feedback, is there? So there's no audience directly in front of you, so you don't actually know how it's hitting.
You're just talking to yourself.
yeah, exactly.
Basically.
So with the audience interaction side of things, do people ring in as well, or is that just a show that you do? Yeah,
it's a mixture. So we'll have people calling in, texting, emailing. We have WhatsApp now, which is great. It makes things really easy. So yeah, they'll get in touch with various messages and things like that. So I tend not to actually take a lot of people live on air because I don't have the skill set quite to do that yet. But they'll be like calling in all morning. So it's nice to have that, just I guess, connection with the people that are listening, because you forget that anybody's listening unless they message in, because you're just there on your own.
Yeah. And moving forward, is presenting media something you want to stay in, or is that something is that still a craft that you're trying to hone and enjoy, or is that something that is more of a side thing now?
I think it's definitely a side thing. Like I said, I see it more as a hobby. It's something I enjoy. It helps me with my skill set. So I think the radio side will always be a part of me. But those skills that I've picked up while I've been there, I think they will be useful for, my business or my goals moving forward with the other projects that I'm working on. So I kind of see myself utilizing those editing skills or the radio skills, etc. And I actually use them day to day in the work that I do. So that's how I still stay connected with that kind of work that I do, if that makes sense.
The one thing I struggle with, which sounds like you have a similar thing, where you have more ideas than you can actually have time for, right? And I used to be quite bad at trying to start everything and doing nothing, as in they all sort of die off, because then I had another 10 ideas that I wanted to start and stuff like that. Now, how do you hone that in terms of, if you have an idea and you think that actually may work, to something that you think, actually, no, I'll leave that on the back burner till maybe later. Mm-hmm. How would you, if someone's asking you, saying, I've got a lot of ideas, but I don't know which one to roll with or how to do it, what would you say?
Well, the first thing I would always say, go back to whichever idea you're most passionate about. Also, it does need to make some sort of financial, logical sense as well. So it's kind of a happy mixture between the two. And then time, just seeing, actually, do I have the time practically to make this a reality? Like, look at it long term as well, not just that short term, within the next year or so, just 2-3 years at least down the line, just to see if it's feasible. Looking at external markets. So I think a combination of those things, but you're right, I do constantly have a lot of ideas, and I just have to rein myself in from even talking about them with people, because they're like, you need to stop.
And I read this book, quite an interesting book about ideas, and it was saying that ideas, this is quite an interesting concept, so I'm going to try and explain it quite simply, but they're saying ideas it's like another life form above human beings. So what happens is that there's this idea sort of energy, which then comes into people. So it's not your idea, it's an idea that's come into you. And then you're the mother that's there to birth the idea into creation. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, it will bounce out of you and then go into someone else that will then try and birth the idea. And I thought that's quite an interesting way of looking at things, because sometimes I think, I don't know where that idea came from. And understanding that, I thought maybe that could be, there could be some truth in that. But having, seeing that everything on this planet that wasn't natural started as an idea, right? So the biggest building to the smallest nanocell technology, everything that we see started as an idea, right? And we as humans have pushed it out of us and created. And I think that's the power of us as human beings in terms of the ability to create and evolve and grow things outside of ourselves, right? So if then that's true, how does, I have younger people that we coach and mentor and things like this, right? The difficulty a lot of them have is they say they don't have any ideas, right? They can't think of anything to do, or they don't have a career path that they want to go on.
Yeah.
If someone came to you with that, say someone younger, and said, I'd just like to watch Netflix all day, that's what I'd like to do. What kind of things could you talk to them about to get them thinking about what path they can actually go down?
First of all, I still think if you like watching Netflix, that there must be some job out there somewhere, which I really need to learn about, because I could do that. But I think, first of all, they just need to look at the types of things that maybe they think they're good at. I think, start off by making a list. I'm all for a list. I'm like a sucker for lists, so I'll have papers everywhere. But so I think, make a list of the things that you're good at, the things that you like doing, and the things that you aspire to do, and see if there is some sort of common interest or goal within all of those. I think they're quite important. I'm actually looking into a concept, which I don't know if you've heard of, called human design. So human design is almost like the science of astrology, and the idea is that there are 5 types of people on the planet. You all fall into a particular category, and it's very complicated. It's distinguished by your birth time. It's not, a super woo-woo kind of concept. It might be, I don't know. But then you have like a chart almost, and it very much distinguishes your energies, your personality, what you're good at, your goal, your missions, and all of this can kind of be understood quite well from this one chart. Now, it's not a proven thing, because obviously there's, a fuzzy line between like science and astrology and all of that. But that's a concept that I've recently read about, and I think it's quite fascinating because it does help people learn a lot more about themselves and the kind of skill set that they have. And I think that would definitely help some of these youngsters if they believe or would be willing to be open-minded enough to read a concept like that, and just see what kind of skill set they should utilize and how they should move forward with maybe what their purpose is.
And is that on the basis of astrology? Is that where
it's on the basis of your birth time? Yes. Yeah. But it's not exactly the way, if you go to an astrologer or a tarot, it's not like that. It's kind of a very clear structure and a system. Lots of books out there on it. And it does include things like, actually, this is what your life purpose is, or this is what your goal is, or this is why you have so many ideas, because you are within this type, and this is what you should do with those ideas. So it's quite fascinating for somebody who is quite almost spiritual / a little into the woo-woo kind of stuff. But I think it would help a lot of people, because I think if you understand yourself more, then you'll understand what you need to do going forward.
And have you tried it?
So I have my own human design chart. I'm not so into, I don't know how to read it as such, because I'm not a professional and I don't do that. But I think it's quite a popular concept in the US currently. It's something that's coming into the market because it's quite a new thing. But it's very complicated in terms of, the actual types of people you have, and then your energies and channels and gates. It's like a full human body graph as such. But something I'm reading is probably the current book I'm reading, actually. So quite a fascinating read if anybody's interested.
It's really interesting you said that, because 2 weeks ago I was in Poland, so I went to see some friends out there for the weekend, and one of the friends that I meet up, he's quite into energy and science and astrology and things like this. So he said, what I'm going to do is, he goes, if you can give me your birth date and your birth time and where you were born, I'll try and do a reading for you. And I was like, whatever. Anyway, so I've never looked into astrology, and I suppose I shouldn't write it off, but I've never looked into it. And the astrology I've had is from the Sun newspaper saying Aries, Libra, and those kind of things, right? I'm like, you can't have everyone based into these things.
Yeah.
That makes sense, right? So then he did this reading and he showed me, okay, so this is your, this is your sun, your moon, your stars, and how it all interlinks. And it was quite detailed about all this. And then he says, based on this, this is a reading about you and the way you think and who you are and blah, blah. And I swear I thought I was reading someone who knew me. There were so many things in there that you almost can't make up, And I thought then when he read this to me, he goes, look, read mine. And I read this and I'm going, that is you, and after seeing that, I thought this is definitely something I want to look into a little bit more, because you can't just make that up, right? I can give you a date and a time, and then it'll be different for different times and dates and things like this, and that'll be a different reading. And again, like, how did it? I know a lot of the time you can say, oh, well, you can see into it, like you'll see what you want to see, right? Like anything is perception, right? But 90%, like 10% maybe, I thought, yeah, maybe that's a bit dodgy. But 90% being actually, that's pretty accurate, for it's like, oh, you can't handle so much emotional heavy loads. You're not great with emotional load. And my wife will tell you that straight. I'm not good with emotional things like that. So I'm like, this is so good. And then I did it for my daughter and I did it for my son just to see what it is. I was like, this is shocking, man. This is exactly what they are, So I want to definitely look into that. So this human design, I'm going to check it out, because it's something new and this only happened 2 weeks ago. So I'm now...
You're now into the zone.
Yeah, when you're in the zone,
sign.
You're like, look into this a bit. So I definitely actually do want to do that. So thank you, and I will. And if I try to understand a little bit more, if I get it, then I'll try and help you understand yours as well.
That sounds good. You'll have to let me know how you get on.
Yeah. I'll check a look, but I reckon it'll be something similar, wouldn't it? It'd be a newer version of.
Yeah, it's very much based on like the moon and planets and looking at when you were born and 3 months prior to when you were born and all of that. So yeah, very similar structure.
And it's interesting because I know are your parents Hindu?
Yes.
Yeah, so same as mine. And I remember when my mum used to always say, like, oh, we'll look at when you're born and we'll look at sort of your stars and stuff like that. And I never believed it. I was like, like a lot of Indian parents do things blindly and they follow things without questioning. And they don't like this generation because we question too much. And we don't accept just by saying because we've been told to do it, right? So it's interesting that all within the tradition of our own culture, it's been there for a long time, right? And I know it's for generation, like my grandparents and their grandparents always used, that or pundits use that to try and sort of source partnerships and stuff like that. And it's really interesting that it's always been there, but I've never looked into it, and now I do. So, and like I said, from the religious side of things, spiritually, I love all this stuff because I know we're part of a bigger purpose. It's not just what you see here in front of you, right? And now a lot of the decisions that I try and make are for times when I'm not even here anymore, and I make changes now for the next generation or the next 3 generations as opposed to just me and my life. So it seems like from the things that you're doing, especially with the relationship side, because obviously the wedding side and the relationship side and matching people, I think I've always seen the importance of human interaction. I've always been a people person as opposed to a online person. So this Zoom thing was quite interesting because before lockdown, I hated this. Like this, when people talk on their phones and when you're talking like WhatsApp chat but you're seeing the video, I found that really alien. Talking to someone on a device. I can talk to you in front of you. Why am I talking to you on this? But then obviously when lockdown happened, it seemed to be the only interaction. Then do family quiz nights and things like that on Zoom, it almost became like, this is the only way I can interact now with people. And it's funny how quickly we as humans adapt to situations when we have to, right? I'm always don't ring. My phone bills are always like 5 seconds because I make a phone call just for a purpose, and then I now because I like to talk. I like to be in front of people and stuff, and that's that's not going to happen. So we'll see how this.
You never know. Never say never.
How do you think things are going to pan out from here onwards? Say like past Christmas and stuff.
I don't know. From a wedding point of view, I have to be quite cautious about my weddings for 2021. So currently, a couple of them are looking at moving into 2022, and that's purely given the government guidelines. So that's what we're working towards. To be honest, it's a shame, but I think safety comes first, and that's what I would always say to all of my couples. So we'll see how it
Hopefully
goes.
they're
But I
still
think
together.
I'm sure they will be.
Because
I hope so.
like situations and pressures and environments can change outlooks, can't it? And then
Yeah.
what's important to you now has changed. So what's important to me now has changed from 6 months ago, and that's really
Yeah.
interesting to me. So hopefully, like you said, there's enough strength there. There's enough strength in the bond that says, actually, no, irrespective, we're gonna still see this through.
Yeah.
But then obviously, if it doesn't, I've always said that's the way it's meant to be. It was meant to happen that way. So
Yeah.
don't listen
Exactly.
to that much. So, Meera, as we sort of head towards the end of this
Yes.
conversation, there's a few more questions that I'd like to ask you, just so that the listeners get a little bit more of an in-depth understanding about you and the way you think. Okay. So now let's fast forward 100 years. We're at the end of your life. You've done everything you want to do. You've matched all the people that you wanted to match. You've done the weddings, and you've done so much more that you don't even know is available right now. Okay. And you're at the end of your life, and you don't have enough energy to speak, but you've got enough energy to write 3 words. Those 3 words have resonated with you your whole life and have helped you in the way you think and the way you live. What would those 3 words be for you?
I think I would probably say, all right, always be kind. I think, if you can just pass some kindness forward, and if everybody did that globally, the impact it would have would be so significant. I don't even think we would be able to imagine how different things would be. But I just think a tiny bit of kindness just goes such a long way. I know when people have just shown me random acts of kindness that I never expected, how it's made me feel. And you just want to pay that forward. So I would say that.
And kindness is an interesting one, because when I was younger, I always thought kindness was weakness. So when someone's kind is quite weak. But as I've got older, I've just seen, like you said, acts of kindness or just kind people around me, and I'm like, that's the biggest strength anyone can have. Because like my mom's quite maternal and very kind. She doesn't see the bad in anyone, and she's more, doesn't matter if they do bad to me, I'm fine, it's fine, I'm not going to do that. Whereas my dad's quite alpha, he's quite sort of loud and
yeah.
So now I see how my mom lives her life, and it resonates so much with me, because to live in that space where you're like, I am continue to be kind, and I will continue to give irrespective of what the outside environment's giving to me, because that makes me feel good and that makes me the person I am today. I think that's a huge strength. And like you said, if there's more people out there that live like that, I think the world will be awesome. So hopefully that message comes out to a lot more people. And finally, this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So you're connected to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They can hear you, they're connected, there's no language barrier, they're all conscious, and they're all ready to listen to what you've got to say. So if I gave you the mic for the next 30 seconds, what would your message be to the world?
I think just given the climate that we're in right now, I would really want people to just be more respectful and tolerant. And that's towards, other people's beliefs, because there's so many things that we hear, from a political point of view, environmental change, there's just so much going on in the world. And I think a lot of clashes, a lot of issues just come about because people just are not tolerant or respectful of other people's views. And I think if we just took out 30 seconds to just think about something from another perspective, I think, again, the world would be a very different place, because it's not always about you. And I think if we just took some time out and did that, then things will change. And I just think, it's such a high pressure environment. And you see that when you're on social media and all the comments people suddenly leave on, some random post, and everyone's just so quick to judge. And I just think we need to do less of that. So I think that's what I would say.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And I think that sums up the conversation which having with you. I think that resonates deeply with me, because even in this short time, I can see that really means a lot to you. And the judgment thing, I think, is so important to say. if you can't, for me, I've always seen that I've been born here. I've tread down this path and I've been surrounded by this energy that have got me to this place where I'm having this conversation with you today. Now, if I then stood in someone else's shoes and walked their life, I'd be doing exactly the same of what they're doing. So therefore, I can never judge anyone standing here because I don't live their life. I've never lived their life and I've never made the decisions that they make. And if I did live their life and their decision, I would do exactly the same as what they're doing. So if I can try and make their life a little bit easier as opposed to actually making it harder by making judgments, that's what hopefully I can do. So thank you for that, Meera. So we've reached the end now. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
No, I think you've asked a lot of questions. There's nothing else.
Chat box, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's what this is for, right? It's been a pleasure. I just wanted to say thank you actually for having me on. It's been quite unexpected because I've not had a podcast like this before that I've recorded on. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. And hopefully we'll be able to stay in touch and bond over human design.
We will. So any help you need with your new ventures, anything that you think that I'm able to help and support you with, please just get in touch. No problem at all. And like I said, when we come out of this new normal into whatever new normal we're into, we can hopefully meet up. I'm building a studio at my premises now, which is a recording, video, audio, podcasting, editing, etc. So I'd love to get you on once you've started launching your things. If I find time, I know you're a super busy female, so no,
there's always time.
we can share some more energy with the world. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for making time for us. Thank you for sharing your message. Thank you for being honest and open. And thank you for being the energy that you are. You're doing such great things in the world, and hopefully they continue because the world needs to see more people like you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and right back at you.
Cool. So this podcast was Bigger Than the Hustle, and just need to leave you with a few thoughts. Big energy leads to big ideas. Big ideas lead to big thoughts. Big thoughts lead to big actions, and big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.